Big time fight coming up on our main card of UFC 272. If you told me a couple of years ago in 2020, right at the end, that Kevin Holland would be fighting Alex Oliveira at welterweight, I would have called you crazy. He was the hottest middleweight at the time. He was future title challenger. He was going to beat Israel Adesanya, some would have said. But 2021 reared its ugly head. And for Kevin Holland, it was a couple losses and a no contest. You look at it, the loss to Derek Brunson, he gets completely out-wrestled. The loss against Marvin Vettori, likewise. And then he has the fight against Kyle Daukaus that goes 6 ways to Sunday, where he gets knocked out and choked out. Obviously, the clash of heads results in the no contest, and was the reason why it ended up the way that it did in the cage. So you look at it for Kevin Holland, 5-0 in 2020, our 2020 Fight Night Picks Fighter of the Year, to a dud of a year last year, and he'll admit it. He has fun with it. He's been wrestling ever since. Training in the Houston adjacent area. You still see him at Looters. Obviously, he spent some time at AKA wrestling before the Daukaus fight. He spent some time with Crew Bob Perez at Main Street Boxing and Muay Thai. You like to see that, accentuating his skills. But the reason why I say I would have been surprised like a year ago, 2 years ago, to hear Holland fighting Oliveira, it's not like the 170 thing. Alex Oliveira, the highs have been very high, but he's 2-6 in his last 8 fights. Like, it has been bad for Cowboy Oliveira. It's been fun. It's been memorable.
Exactly.
But it's been bad. You look at the last 2 wins that he's had. I mean, we're getting one done over Max Griffin by split decision, and Peter Sabata, who just marches forward with his right hand glued to his body every single fight. But you look at it for Alex Oliveira, even in the last 3 fights that he's had, Shavkat Rakhmonov by submission, no shame in that one, I guess. Randy Brown with the crazy one-arm rear naked choke. And then a loss to Nico Price, where that was a really fun fight. But he did lose to Nico Price in that one. So again, I look at this one for Holland. Again, when you're fighting Derek Brunson and he gets 6 of 12 takedown attempts for 16 minutes and 55 seconds of control time, or you're fighting Marvin Vettori where it's 20 minutes and 1 second of control time and 11 of 17 takedown attempts for Vettori, even Kyle Daukaus in 1 round was able to get 2 minutes and 10 seconds of control time.
After he headbutted him, so that doesn't count at all.
But when we look at those fights, obviously the wrestling was such an Achilles heel for Kevin Holland. And it should be noted, Matt, before I hand this off to you, Kevin Holland hasn't fought at welterweight since 2017. It was an LFA 13 fight against Curtis Millender, where he lost by decision in that one, at 8-4 with a no contest in the UFC at middleweight. But when I look at this fight, Matt, this is so damn weird.
I don't see it as that weird, if I'm being honest. And at least let me give my case right now. For Alex Oliveira, I guess it's weird that he's still in the UFC because he's had multiple losing streaks like this at this point. And it is just a really good point to say. In MMA, you know what matters way more than your wins and losses? If you're exciting. It's all that matters. Not all that matters. The wins and losses definitely do. Don't get me wrong. But you know what I mean? Like, you can be 2-3 in your last 5, but let's say you had 3 fight of the nights and you had 1 really nice knockout and your 2 wins. The UFC is going to keep you around. Whereas if you're like an Elias Theodoro bragging about how many times you can kick Dan Kelly's already weak knees, they're probably going to get rid of you at the first sign of a loss. Now, for Kevin Holland, though, I just felt like he wasn't in the right division for a very long time. And like you said, he hasn't been a welterweight for a while now, but it's not like he was someone who was known to struggle with the weight cut down to middleweight. He was often someone who would weigh in 1.5 pounds lighter than the 185 weight limit, so I don't necessarily think the weight cut's going to be that big of an issue for him. Again, that's why we do question mark kicks 2 hours before the prelims, so we can right our wrongs. But for Kevin Holland, I think if he can make the weight, this is just a really nice restart for him. We talked about Brian Kelleher early and how, when a guy starts losing in multiple different ways throughout his career, that's when you get nervous. For Kevin Holland, like you had said, he really only has that one huge weakness at the UFC level, to where when he fights the top tier wrestlers, they're going to be able to chain wrestle.
Thiago Santos, good point.
He will really struggle with them and their physicality. But physicality is the point. I'm glad you brought up Santos. Thiago Santos is a 205-pound fighter who has fought for the title there, and a lot of people thought he beat John Jones. A big, strong guy. Marvin Vettori, a big middleweight, and same thing for Derek Brunson. I think Kevin Holland at this weight class, and just by being at welterweight, is going to help his takedown defense quite a bit. He won't find himself being the weaker guy at this weight class like he was at middleweight. He'll be the much bigger and the much stronger guy in a lot of these matchups. And I know he lost to Curtis Millender, who... Listen, when it comes to striking, he's very, very good at it. When it comes to grappling, there's a lot left there to be desired. But for Kevin Holland, also knocked out Jeff Neal, and that does mean quite a bit at this weight class. Again, it was a few years ago now, but that is a really nice win that does age quite well, especially with how good Jeff Neal's looked as of late. But for Holland, again, I'm going to throw back to the Mike Wilbon quote. You win this fight unless you're not who we thought you were. And yes, the last year was a very bad one for Kevin Holland. His stock diminished quite a bit. But if he was the guy that we thought was the fighter of the year in 2020, who we had such high hopes for, in a weight class that he didn't even belong in, I think he should be able to beat Alex Oliveira this weekend, shouldn't he?
I don't think he didn't belong at middleweight, and the reason why, when you're knocking guys out like Jacare Souza, when you're still the 14th ranked middleweight coming off of those losses in the no contest, I think...
But that's what I mean. To me, I think we're going to see a better version of him at welterweight is what I'm trying to say.
I hope.
I think we'll see him above the 14th rank, though.
I hope. But when I look at this one, Oliveira, unranked. The last time he was on a 3-fight losing streak, he won 2 in a row. So there is that, right? But he's 2-6 since UFC 231. Gunnar Nelson changed him. Whether that's good or bad, Gunnar changed him, and Gunnar's coming back, and I can't wait for it. But again, performance bonuses against Hallman, LaFleur, and Condit. Remember the time Alex Oliveira choked out Carlos
Condit? He should have got one against Carlos Pedersoli, too, because Pedersoli got KO'd in one of the most vicious fashions in that fight.
Dropped the S, and we got it. And for Fight of the Nights, Yancy Medeiros and Mike Perry. Did Mike Perry also change him? Maybe he did. Did Mike Perry get a win against Julian Lane in this year? He did. Did I watch it? No. And Triller, good luck with BKFC. But when I look at this fight, Matt, the odds for Holland, minus 200 at open, minus 250 right now. For Alex Oliveira, open a plus 170 is a plus 200 or thereabouts. If we look at Tapology votes, surprised us they are to you. I'm going to say over under 80% Kevin Holland.
I would say over.
Yeah, look at that. 709 total votes, 94% Holland, 69% by knockout. For the 6% that have Oliveira, again, it's a lifesaver popsicle. They're all over the place. I can't take Alex Oliveira to win this fight. Again, when you look at Oliveira, he's flashy. He moves a lot, either as a positive or a net negative. But when you look at Oliveira, does he grapple? Yes, he does. But against Kevin Holland, I mean, if he gets a takedown, it would surprise me even in this matchup. I think Kevin Holland has a distinct striking advantage, and I think he wins this fight, wherever it takes place.
Alex Oliveira can't take a shot at this point of his career. I don't know why anyone would pick him in this fight. When he gets touched by anything on the feet now, he does get hurt. And that's what happens when you have multiple Fight of the Nights over and over and over again. And you talk about some of the bonuses. Even his non-bonus winning fights are normally insane, and he normally eats a lot of damage as a result. And at a certain point, you gotta pay the Pied Piper, and the damage is going to accumulate, and you're not going to be the same fighter at a certain point. Alex Oliveira also used to be a lightweight, and I know we talked about Thiago Santos fighting at middleweight than being at 205. Kevin Holland, if he is what you say is borderline a middleweight, or he should be a middleweight, that's the weight class he belongs in. You have a middleweight meeting a lightweight at welterweight. Normally, if some guy is quite a bit bigger than his opponent, and if he is able to make the weight comfortably, again, we'll get back to that conversation in question mark kicks, he should be able to blow the doors off Alex Oliveira.
And I mean, Holland has a giant reach advantage too, and Oliveira is able to usually use the reach advantage to kind of plot around there. He's almost like a Julian Erosa in that cage. He's all over the place, throwing those legs, throwing those hands. Very interesting fighter, but Matt, both of us going with Kevin Holland to get back on the win streak, or at least in the win column, coming up this weekend. If you have Cowboy Oliveira, let us know down below. If you have Kevin Holland, the trash talker, the trailblazer, you also let us know. We get some big-time fights on this main card. 3 of them left. You're not going to want to miss them, so keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.